are going to do, because this way I don't need to talk loud. I might get you all come forward a bit, or at least you come forward. Just you.
I've got a bad cough at the moment, so.
Well, that's okay.
Really?
Just talk quietly. Just come forward to here. You don't have to sit in the front row.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Okay. What's your name?
Suzanne.
Suzanne. I'm Michael. And your name?
James.
James. Chris. Chris.
Vigil. B-I-J-A-L.
Vigil. Make sure I get it right. Because my name's Michael, right? M-I-K-E-L. Everyone calls me Nickel, Hale, and Mike. And then when you look at it, it's really just Mike with an L on the end. So I don't really get what the confusion is. You know, if you were to spell Michael phonetically, you'd write that. You wouldn't write M-I-C-H-A-E-L. Anyway, that's my name. So Vigil. Christina. What's your name?
My name's Stephen.
Stephen. G'day, Stephen. I'm Michael. I know those two people down the back that work for me. So that's Andrew and Lance. Definitely never Lance. It's always Lance. So we're going to talk about the breaking down web development. So can you come forward a bit? And then, yeah, just come forward a couple of rows. I'm not sure how many people are coming or who's here, but that's fine. The less means you get more attention from me when we get to ask more questions. So web development is an interesting topic, and what we're going to do is I've got a whole bunch of slides here that cover a wide range of things. And as we move through it, if you have questions, we've got a small enough group, feel free to shout them out. And I'll try and remember your name. And if I fail, I fail. So my name's Michael. I work at a company called Reinteractive. I created it about 4 years ago. We make large websites. I'm also a Rails contributor, so I've contributed to the Ruby on Rails code base. So I have some idea of what I'm doing. And I think I've put about 300 software commits into the Rails code base. I actually hold the world record for deleting the most amount of code out of Rails. At 27,000 lines is my net contribution, which is actually quite cool, because less code means less bugs, right? So I've deleted a lot of Rails code in my life. And I'm the secretary of the Australian Web Industry Association. I have a couple of other things that I do, but Reinteractive is the main thing, and we've got a little thing of some of our staff here. So Reinteractive makes online web applications. So we build complex web-based apps that you would use. So think like Facebook, LinkedIn. So complex portals that people come in and interact with and do something with. That's what we build. We build it for all sorts of companies, big and small. The only real qualification to use us if you're looking to build a website is that you can afford it. And other than that, it's not going to kill anyone who'll build it. So obviously we're here because General Assembly invited us all, and thank you to General Assembly for the nice place. So first off, who are you guys? So who here runs a business? Managers, developers, or software people? Okay, good. Are you all, yeah? Oh, a couple. Works with software people? Okay. Yeah. Wants to learn more about what software people do? Okay, good. Who's looking to become a developer? Anyone? Okay, good. Cool. G'day. Right on the back.
I just sneak in.
You snuck in. So good. So you're all looking to sort of demystify what web development is. Okay, good. Well, you've come to the right talk. If you were here to find out what UX is, you'd have to go down the corridor. But that's what we're doing. We're doing web development here. So what is web development? Man, is this a complex definition. Has anyone got a definition for me? Any ideas? What would you say web development is?
Building websites.
Good. That's a good start. Definitely.
Applications for the web.
Yep. Could do that too. So, really, if you went and asked 100 people what web development is, you'd probably get 100 definitions. Because there are so many out there. And, to quote one of my favourite movies,
Inconceivable. Lo que ellos mejor. Entonces, ¿qué means?
Because web development doesn't mean what a lot of people think. It's actually very rare that you're developing websites for people that actually are just a website. Because what's a website? A lot of people look at websites and they're like a nice brochure page that has some content on it, right? A lot of web development, that's like the final piece, almost, of the jigsaw, of the puzzle. that front-facing view, that's the last, usually, piece that you make right in the whole process. There's all this other stuff behind it. So let's break down what the word web development means. So I used trusty Google, and I Googled and I got that definition, and I thought that definition was actually pretty good. Web development is a broad term, nothing truer could be said, for the work involved in developing a website for the internet or an intranet, a private network. Right? So when you're looking at web development and you're building a website, you're building it for the internet or the intranet. So internet, as you probably all know, you use it every day, you might not know what it is. It's a global network of computers that provide the ability for people to communicate with each other and exchange information, roughly. And it uses a standardized tool for doing so. An intranet is like a private network, something you use internally in a company. Who here has an intranet at their work? Something that's internal. Okay, so you can't actually access that from the outside world unless you've got special keys or passwords or whatever. But both of those things, or both of the web development builds on web software, right? So this idea of World Wide Web software is in that definition. It's a process of using World Wide Web software to build tools on an intranet or an internet. So what is World Wide Web software, right? What would you be building World Wide Web software with? And if you've done any stuff around developers, you probably got attacked and bashed up with a whole bunch of terms. Something like this. HTML and CSS, has everyone heard of that? Okay, good. So there's a couple others. There's JavaScript, there's Ruby. You've probably heard lots of these terms. And there's lots of them. And they just keep coming. And you go, well, hang on a sec, how can all of that be one person's job? You know, where does it ever end? And I had to stop myself at this point because I could just keep going, you know, forever. So all of these are part of building a website. And there's going to be a test at the end of this, and you need to memorize all of those. So I've probably just put up a whole bunch of words that some of you have a good idea of what it is, and some of you don't. And there's a reason I did that. Because when you see a list like that, if you don't understand what those words mean, you tend to sort of tune out at that point, and you might not understand or listen to anything that's being said from that point onwards. And when you're dealing with a software developer or a computer person, and I can say this because I am a software developer and a computer person, one of the tricks we use to get you to shut up and go away is give you all these words that you don't understand, and then you'll just go, oh, it's too hard to leave it to the wrong way. So it is a defense mechanism of the engineering world to use every acronym they can, because it puts up this barrier between those that know and those that don't. I remember when I was first starting out in this industry, I was building an ISP, an internet provider. This is back in 91, 92, 93, somewhere in there. And I actually went on a mailing list at the time and I asked a question. And the response was, if you need to ask this question, you shouldn't be working in this industry, right? And the question wasn't something trivial, right? It was, how do I coordinate load balance traffic across multiple internet service providers so that my customers have the best, you know, failover, backup links? Like, it was not a trivial question. It was a pretty complex question. But that attitude made me go, whoa, how are we meant to learn, right? And at that point, it became very hard for me to ask more questions, because suddenly, oh, he's at that level, you know, and we only let you in if you're at this level. But how you get from that level to this level apparently is some random religious initiation ceremony where you have to sacrifice 3 HP servers to some unknown god. But, you know, it's a process of getting into the in crowd. And as you guys want to learn more about web development, you're going to get hit with all of these sorts of words. I'm not going to try and clear all of them for you, but, you know, HTML and CSS, it's the structure of the web and how it's all working. JavaScript, PHP, Ruby, .NET, Java, they're all languages that you can write programming in or programs in. .NET is one of those as well. So there's a whole bunch of little terms in that, and, you know, it's all a bit different. So when you look at that, you go, oh, is that all I have to learn? You know, how hard could it be, right? Well, actually, no, it's a lot harder. So this diagram are all the different items of what you need to know to be a competent Ruby on Rails web application developer. And when I first looked at that, it blew me away. And then I looked at all the items and I actually went, yeah, that's about right. And let me just show you something. I'll just jump out of that. There's an awful lot that you need to know if you're doing this professionally as a job. You know, from the language of Ruby, how you do all the Ruby language, what Ruby gems are, which are software libraries, everything to do with the Rails framework. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. Git is software control, so you keep versions running, how to use and edit code, the principles behind software engineering, like there's a whole field, you've got a university for that for 4 years to learn that one. Data, all these sorts of things. I mean, this is pretty mind-blowing, right? It makes you appreciate that little nerdy kid that can make it on a website. Because there's a lot of things involved in that. Who had any idea that there were that many subjects in just web development? Yeah, you did? Good. But, I mean, when I first saw that, I just went, wow. You know, and going through that list as a developer, I can say, yeah, I know not everything about all of that, but I know bits of all of that, right? And I use all of that knowledge to build a website, right? So when you look at that, you go, that's a little bit awkward. That's a lot of information, you know, and it can become daunting. And it's important to simplify it down a bit. Who here has tried to develop a website themselves at some point? Or build a website? Or build a web page? Yeah? Okay. Who's tried to get someone else to do it? It's an interesting process, isn't it?
Difficult. That's why I came tonight. I might learn something around that.
Yeah.
Easier.
Yeah, good. And it is a difficult process because you're sort of dealing with a layer of unknown, right? So you're here and you've got some concept about what you want this website to be. Then there's this layer of who knows what, all of that, right? In between your idea and the implementation. And then you're trusting some person in between to take your idea, conceptualize it, and then implement it, right? I could do another whole talk on how to get web developers to do what we want, but we can simplify that by providing good coffee and, you know, a nice place to work. I run a development company of 14, I think. How many? Something like that. 14 or 15 developers of different types. Well, actually 18 if you include the operations people. And being a developer, again, I can say this, looking after developers can be like herding cats. Because they all have their opinions on how things should work, and you have to sort of guide them, you know, and treat them like racehorses and look after them, and then they get the job done, right? Validate. So if that's all the data you have to learn, as a manager, good news is, or as someone who wants to deal with web developers, you don't need to know that. And in fact, that looks really daunting, but you could probably take any profession and you can make a diagram like that, to that complexity. What are some of the professions in the room?
Marketing.
Okay. So when you think about all the things you have to know in order to execute a successful marketing campaign, you know, from design, promo, copywriting, surveys, pitching, how you're going to do it, where you're going to distribute it, how much it's going to cost to do printing, what's the different type of printing types, CMYK, offset, laminating, I mean, all that sort of stuff, right? You can make a whole grid of that.
Yeah. And a lot of you don't have to worry about it.
That's right. And what's another one in here? What do you do? Christine? You do software development?
And BA now.
Yeah, right. Good. So a lot of that will be familiar to you, right? And it's interesting, you can get a software developer or BA in one field, and then you bring them across to web development. There's a lot of parallels, but there's massive chunks of unknown, you know. And it is very interesting. I mean, if you're going to be a pilot, professional racing driver, I mean, you can think about there'd be a lot of different breakdowns, right? So the good news is you don't need to know all that in order to interact. So let's simplify it a bit. And while I'm going through this, please just put up a hand and ask questions. There is going to be questions at the end, and I do expect them. So we've got front end and back end in web development, right? And to the simplest level, this is two of the things that you absolutely must know if you're dealing with a web development person, right? Or you're trying to get something developed for the web. There's the front end and there's the back end. What is the front end and back end, right? So what would be the front end of, say, something like Facebook? The user interface, good. Or when you pick up your mobile phone and log in, you know how you see the screen? That's the front end. It's the part that you interact with. It's the part that you use or read or play with somehow on the screen, right? That's the front end. What would the back end be of Facebook? What would be the behind the scenes part of Facebook?
PHP.
The database, yeah, what?
PHP.
PHP, right? Well, that's the language, that's right. So you've got the front, sorry? The servers, that's right. So you've got the front end, which is how it all looks, and the back end, which sort of drives it all. Okay? So if you're going to do an analogy, you're going to break that down, you have HTML, which is a hypertext markup language. That's what that stands for, which is a really complex word for something that looks like this. So because we've got less people here, I'm going to do a couple of things. So if you're building a page, and let's just save this as a file. If you're building a page for the web, hello, this is Michael. I am giving a talk. As, excuse any typos. The points are as follows. 1, intro. 2, talk. 3, end. Right? So that's you could say a bit of information that you wanted to put up on the web, right? And it's structured. You can see it's structured. There's a title at the top, and there's other things like that. So maybe under the title we put a little line like this. And if you put that into an email, someone could read it. It's nice and structured. It looks good. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome, I think. So if we went and opened that, where did I say that? Oh, good. So I'm going to open that in a web browser. It would look like this. Because the web browser doesn't obey normal text language, right? So it needs a way to do things. So the reason it looks like that is that not everyone puts a line like that to indicate a line under a title, right? Someone else might come along and say, well, actually the way I do that is I need to do it to there. And that makes sense. So there's lots of different ways to represent structure in a document, right? So what the World Wide Web, when it was just developed, said is they need a standardized way to present this information so that everyone can read it. So the way you do hypertext markup language is you put these little tags around each one, like this. Right? So that's a heading. And if we want a line under that, we're going to do a horizontal rule. And then we're going to wrap each of these in the paragraph tag. And then we've got an ordered list here. I'm going to put that into the ordered list. And the first item is going to be intro. The second item is going to be talk. And the third item is going to be end. Right. Now if we reload our web browser, right? And what I just showed you was HTML, right? It's really simple. And anyone that tells you HTML is any more complex than that is trying to scare you off. Any one of you could write HTML, I could give you a course for 10 minutes, and you'd be able to take any decent sized Word document and turn it into HTML. It's really simple. And that's all it is, right? Easy, man. Simple. I mean, it's fairly simple, it's fairly straightforward. So if we were to make this a proper web page, we'd wrap it all in little HTML tags, like this. And then we have a heading on the site. I'm trying to do this while looking at my computer screen. And body. Let's do that. So that just gives us some structure. So that tells the browser that everything within here is the actual body of the text. And these little list items, and so forth, right? So simple. That's what HTML is all about, right? So when we're talking about HTML gives you the structure of the document, do you see how it changed it from an unstructured document into a structured document? Okay, good. That's all HTML is, hypertext markup language. It's a way of taking text and making it hyper, which in the 80s meant awesome or super. And that's really what it is. And it's a markup language because you're marking up, you're adding stuff to the existing code, or the existing text, right? And of course you could do other things in that. If you wanted to, the other thing that the web said is Well, we need a way to put links to other web pages in. Right. And I have very attractive. So that's all good, and we show the people our web page, and the client goes, yeah, that's good, but I really want a link to my website from that. I don't want it to just be it by itself. So then we can go in here and we can wrap that in a link tag. Like that. And now when we go here, that's now linked. So you see how we've marked up that language and we've given it a link. Now we'll go to web page. So that's all HTML is. That's pretty simple. Any questions about that? Good. So if you've got the structure of the website built with HTML, then that looks fine, but it doesn't look very pretty, right? So the next thing that there is this thing called CSS. And CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Why it's called Cascading Style Sheets is an interesting question. But it's cascading and it's style sheets and cascading. You're from the print industry, right?
Digital.
Digital? Okay. Anyone who's done printing from a while ago, or even or studied printing, you would have heard of these things called style sheets. Or you might have heard of a style for a company, right? So large corporate companies have these styling directives, like you will use this font when you're doing anything about marketing with our company, or our logo is always this high and this wide, and this colour blue represents our business, and this colour red represents bad. It's called a style sheet. It's just a way to uniformly apply a style across a document, right? What they did with the web is they decided we'll call them style sheets as well, because that everyone knows what a style sheet is. I mean, this is back in the 80s when we all had style sheets. If you're in marketing, and the web came from sort of that area. And then they wanted to have cascading style sheets, so that say you had a basic style sheet that you used for your main company, and then the HR department has some other logos and things, right? Instead of taking all the content from this first style sheet and putting it all into the marketing one or the HR department, you can load this style sheet and then load the HR department underneath it. So now the style cascades down through the styles, right? And it merges all of these together to make one global sheet of styles, right? That's all a style sheet is. So you've probably heard of CSS in your touchings with the web world, but really CSS gives you style. It makes things look better. So I'll quickly show you what that means. So here we have, to put that on that screen. Sorry about that. Might just change the color scheme. Okay. So we could have a style sheet inside this document, right? So we've got this web page. Just one second. Yeah. Who's ever seen CSS or that sort of thing and wondered how it works? No? Yeah? Okay, good. So the simplest way to add style to a document, one of the simplest ways, is we can just make a style tag. So I'm going to say this is style. And we can say in here that we want, I don't know, all the H1 tags. Everything that's H1 in the document, we're going to make, say, color red. Right? So now if we reload that page, I could actually do that. I think it's alright, it's now red. So, and we can say that all the p tags in the document are blue. So now they're all blue. Right? This is all what style sheets are, and we can say that actually not only are they blue, and because I'm in the 80s, I'm going to say that the body of our site, colour green, Because this is going to look awesome. Oops. Open that one. Background color. How's that for marketing brilliance? No one's going to forget that site, right? So each of the different types of styles and sheets that you put into a site are going to give you that difference as you move forward, right? So there's two of the probably most common things that you're ever going to hit into. Does that make sense? Okay. So the next thing you might have heard of is JavaScript, and that gives you the interaction of the site, right? It makes things do things. So you know when you go into Facebook and you're using your Facebook app and the little notification thing appears in the top right-hand corner, right? That is a piece of JavaScript, which is a programming language that runs on your browser and lets you actually run it live as you're interacting with it. So where you would use JavaScript primarily is to add more interaction or more flair into the existing site. Right? It's not designed brilliantly so much to handle all the back-end load, although you can do it that way. But it's really designed to take a web page and make it more interactive and you can play with it more. So if you're talking to your web developer and they're building your site and now you know what HTML is because you know you've seen this talk and you're an expert and you know what styles are, and then you go, what I need is when they click on this link, instead of the whole page reloading, I want it to go and show some information, or I want a little alert box to pop up. That's JavaScript, right? So it's quite simple like that. I can show you some JavaScript if you want. Yeah? Okay. Why not? It's a script tag. So we'll go in here, and what we're going to do, because we're all really awesome, we're going to make this script which just brings up an alert. So we can just go, alert, hello, welcome to my website. And I don't suggest you do this on every page that you create. So when we open this page, it's going to bring up an alert before the page even runs. So that was some JavaScript, right? Really simple. But you can do anything with that within reason. You know, probably won't boil the kettle, although I do know someone that has written a JavaScript program that from the web page will make them coffee. So you can pretty much do whatever you want. So what I'm trying to do here is demystify some of these terms, right? They're not arcane arts or magic or secrets. They're just really simple tools that web developers can use to make an interactive and usable website, okay? So with HTML, with CSS, and with JavaScript, you can build the front end of Facebook, right? You can build that. It wouldn't have all the database on the back end or the way that it have friends or anything like that, but you can build that front end and build everything that you see on that page you could do if you knew the JavaScript well enough. It might have a really awesome green background like my site because, you know, green's awesome. But you could do that, okay? So if that's the front end, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, what's the back end? Well, the back end is made up of a few things. The first one is that there's obviously the internet itself is part of your back end. Because if the front end works on the client's browser, or the person that's viewing its browser or mobile phone's browser or something like that, then as soon as they click something on that, that message has to travel through the internet and through the networks to get to your server at the other end. So the internet is part of your back end. So if you're making a decision with your web developers, where are we going to host this website or where should it live, you want to probably host it close to where your users are, so it could be in Australia or something like that. But that's where that back end starts, is once it leaves the browser, it has to travel over the internet. So at the very start of it. Then you've got servers. Servers are where you publish your documents, where you store all the website and build all of that sort of stuff, right? So in our case, we use a lot of servers that run Linux, and you'll find most of the websites in the world run on a flavor of Unix of some sort. They don't tend to run on Windows boxes or Macintosh boxes or stuff. They're very focused on Unix type boxes. Windows does serve a lot of stuff in terms of Microsoft products like Exchange and all these sorts of things. But you'll find most dedicated web servers are running some sort of flavor of Unix. Do you have a question? Or? Cool. I'm interested.
I was going to ask about, they're not using mainframes, obviously, but are they using Linux?
Yeah, Linux, that's right. So the servers that run generally are very, very large and powerful, but they're still small boxes, but there's just millions of them. Crazy amounts of servers. If you've ever walked into a major server farm, they call them, you get blown away by the number of boxes that are actually running there. And you have to wear earplugs because the fans, all those little fans, add up to like 110 decibels of sound. And it's pretty wild. So once you get to the server, it serves up your front end, HTML, JavaScript, and what?
CSS.
Good. Sends it to the browser, and it also is going to pull up the information about that user. So it's going to pull up something out of the database, right? So the database is where you store all of your information that you're going to customize pages when the user comes to your site, right? So, you know when you go to Facebook, you log in, so they must store your email and your password somewhere, right? And your name and your favorite, the last photo that you took and the photo of breakfast that you took and everything else, that lives in some sort of database. Database as a word can mean many, many different things, but simply it just means a store of data. And data can be images, text, movies. On YouTube, what's their database full of? Videos, right? And also comments. You know, Facebook's full of whatever it is. LinkedIn is full of whatever it is. You know, Tumblr is little bits of text. Twitter is their whole database is usernames, passwords, and lots of little 150 character long pieces of text. So the database can vary from application to application. Picking the right database for your website or the application you're building is pretty important because some databases do a lot better than others. But that decision usually doesn't matter until you start getting a lot of traffic. So usually if you have no idea, just leave it up to whoever's developing it and you'll be good to go. The database also is what you want to back up. So if you are dealing with a web development firm, you want to make sure that the database is getting backed up regularly. Because if your whole site goes down and the database gets lost, well, you can put the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript back up because you've probably got that saved somewhere in source control. But if you don't have a database, then you're starting from scratch. So all your clients are going to be somewhat upset. I mean, who here would like to go and re-enter every post they've ever put on Twitter or Facebook because they lost the database? You probably wouldn't. You'd probably just leave and go, screw it, I needed an excuse to quit Facebook anyway. So, you know, it's an important thing, that database. So, to summarize those two, the front end, design, style, user experience, and presentation. It's what you see when you go to a website. It's what you can feel and touch with your mouse or your trackpad or your thumb, whatever it is you're using. And it's what presents and displays that content. Okay? And then you've got the back end. The back end is data storage, business rules, processing, persistence, performance. So when I say persistence there, if you didn't have a database and you logged into Facebook, you log in, you give them a username and password, you do all this stuff, you leave, you close the browser, you come back, it's all gone. You have to start again, right? That's what persistence is all about. How do we carry this data on through time? All right? So I'll just jump back to that front end one. So you can see these are two quite different arts, right? One's about the look and feel and how it is, and the other is about how it works and what the rules are in using it, okay? So give me an example of a business rule on Facebook or something that is part of the way that Facebook works on the back end.
You see posts of people you're friends with?
Right. So you don't necessarily see posts from everybody, right? So the fact that you only see a post from someone you're friends with is a back-end business rule, right? The front end of that is that you can see the post, right? And that it's designed properly, that it's got a little picture of the website that they're referring to, or something like that, yeah? So there's two different forms of art there, if you like. There's a front-end developer, and there's a back-end developer. And sometimes we'll find people that build websites that are called full stack, which means back-end and front-end. So they can do it all the way through, right? They're sort of like generalists. So sometimes if you're building a small site, you want a full stack developer, someone that can do everything. So you go, I want to build Facebook for dogs. And they go, got it, I'll have it back to you in 3 weeks, right? And they go and build it, and they give it to you in 3 weeks, and it does about 5% of what you want. But they've built it all the way through, right? Or maybe you go, I want to build Facebook for dogs, and I'm Hal, I make dog food for a living, and we have a $200,000 budget to build this, and we're going to launch it over the next 2 months. And you come to someone like us at Reattractive, and we put 2 or 3 back-end developers on it who are specialists. We put a front-end developer on it that's a specialist. We put a user experience person on it that's a specialist. And then all those people would work together to produce that full stack. Because it's got layers, right? We've got the user experience, then how that's developed with the design, then the business rules on how that works, which sort of breaches both a little bit because, when you're on Facebook and you click hide, it hides instantly, right? So that would be done with JavaScript. It just goes boom. So that's a part of the business rule. If that JavaScript wasn't there and you clicked hide, the whole page would have to reload to show that post disappeared, right? So that's how that JavaScript works. So that's why you've got different back-end and front-end developers. And you might have actually heard this when you're dealing with people. You're back-end developer, I'm a front-end developer, whatever. Front-end just means design, user experience, presentation, which is done with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And you're all experts in those 3 now because you've seen how I did it. And I didn't use any tools for that, right? I just used a text editor, saved a file, and opened it in a web page. And in fact, I could take that file and put it out on the web somewhere, and you could all look it up on your mobile phone, and it would work. Right? It is that simple. Where web development gets hard is making that look good, and making it into a user experience that people can actually enjoy and want to come back to and capture their attention and get them in, right? People spend their whole lives, well, not the whole lives, because the web's only been around since like the 80s, but people spend a lot of time learning how to do that really, really well. And the top designers and the top developers get paid extremely well. Any questions about front end and back end? Any questions at all about anything? Yet? Okay. That means I'm answering all your questions awesome. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, to me, front end developers, it sounds like a very, I don't know, it's kind of disparate opinions about different industry people will tell you. It's like, it's more of a designer than actually developer. Because as you say, it's focused on the style and the design, presentation, which is an element of UX field. You have to enforce that mindset that the developer has to think. And really, development means knowing bits and ones and zeros.
Yeah,
and
right.
that's what you're supposed to do. But where's the design come into it?
Yeah, so well, the design comes into it from, as a design, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I've broken, I don't know how many rules of design in that document. One is never use red with green.
Yeah.
But a designer would be able to take an idea you had, Facebook for dogs,
Right.
and they'll come up with a visual look and feel about it. So it looks nice. Like
Yes.
I could give you this document, just the text,
Yeah.
and the text of this is our brochure, by the way, in Vermont.
Yeah.
The text on this brochure fills 1 page,
Right.
right? But with the design implemented in it, it suddenly becomes something that, hopefully you have a little bit of interest looking at, right?
Yeah.
And you open it and there's photos there, and they happen to be all of our stuff, right? There's photos on the back, and that happens to be all of our events.
Yes.
They're photos from our events, right?
Yeah.
So that's the design part. And you could say that this is nothing more than little bits of ink on paper, right? Same as ones and zeros. So the art of a front-end developer is taking the design, which might come from the marketing company, it could come from the founder, it could come from some random person, the founder's son's, sister's, brother's, aunt's, uncle's daughter, who just graduated university in Lower Bolivia and sent in her logo, and now they have to take that and turn that into a website, right?
Yes.
So it can come from anywhere. It's how you take that, and the front-end developer takes that and turns it into something as awesome as what you see on the screen right now, right? Yeah?
So this is all text.
Yes.
What about pictures and videos?
Yeah. So if we wanted to load an image, say we wanted let's feel lucky. What's the first thing we have on this page? What? No, I wanted YouTube, not your dash. So,
Hi, and welcome to today's
that's Chloe.
webinar.
So say we wanted wanted to embed this video, we could get the embed code. Now, if you look at this, when I paste it in, what do you know about that? It's just HTML. See, it's got this open bracket, and it's got the document, right? So now if we go to the web page and we reload, it's wrong page. We've got our alert, which is really useful. It's going to get lots of people coming back to our website. And the video. So we wanted to put an image in here. We could put in an image on our file, on our system. So let me just grab that. I'm going to put an image in which created. Right, so just put an image in, right? So it's all just these little tags. It's actually very hard to develop while looking behind your back. So that image was a bit tall, right? So you can actually, we could put a style in that up here. We could go all images on our site need to have a width of 300 pixels on the screen. And it should come out. Right, so now it's changed that width. So that's all that images and documents are. So if we put a PDF there, it would have a little icon of a PDF download or whatever. Make sense?
You know, we start at the front end and then so
Yeah. So when you're developing a site, yes, actually, pretty much. If you're building an actual website, yes. If you're trying to solve a business process and you think you need a website, then sometimes no. Sometimes the best way to start is, well, what solution am I actually trying to solve here? Andrew and I were actually chatting to a client of ours today, and they had this idea, which I can't tell you everything about, but they had a small business, right? And they were starting it on the site. We were just chatting about it. And the first thing he did, because he's a technology person, like he knows how to do all this, and he said, I had to constantly stop myself trying to build a website for it because it didn't need it. You know, we're just starting out. We only have 5 customers. You know, why build a website? Why spend $50,000 building a website for 5 customers? I mean, you just wouldn't, right? So he actually wrote out the business process first and sketched it out, how it's going to work, and then saw, well, this is where I need a website, but I only need that once I get enough users that I've got clients coming to me that I don't know that need some way to pay online or do something like that, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you don't actually even need a website. And it's actually quite funny that a lot of the work that I and Andrew and Lance do when we're out selling our companies, quite often we'll sell them not to buy from us, you know, because they don't need this function yet in their business. But once you've decided you need a website, you can start with what we call wireframes in the industry. So I'll show you an example of a wireframe. Make sure I don't go to some random website again. So Flood.io is a load testing company. They make big websites. They test that large websites work and can handle the traffic that's going to be sent their way. So an example of this is a wireframe. So, you know, if we click on this, we get this sort of user experience first, right? So there's no colors, there's no, you know, it's quite simply designed. And that's just to give you an idea of how the information should flow on the site. So if you are getting developers to do some work, you want to build out something like this first. And this is actually quite an advanced version. A sketchbook, like a plain paper sketchbook, with a nice thick, like 5mm black marker, is actually probably the best way to start sketching out a website. And the reason for that is that a 5mm marker is really hard to write small. So you're not going to put much detail in, right? Because you can't, because the tool won't let you. So that stops you from fussing over, oh, should the box go to here or should it go to here, you know? Or this text, I should make it a little nice, or then I want to write all this. No, all you'll be able to do is go box, you know, because that's all you can fit on the page. The thicker the marker, sometimes the better. And then what you can do is you just draw out the basic site. You know, this is the site, and I want a login box here, and you just draw a box and you write the login in it, and then, you know, you just build it out. So if you build out a wireframe first, then what you can do is you can take that wireframe to your software developer or your web developer or a development company like us and go, what can I do to build this? You know, what's the estimation of effort I need to get this done? and then they can look at it and give you some ideas. You know, yeah, that's going to take many months or a few months or a few weeks. And then you can get budgets and work it out from there. So you'll find that web designers and developers are fairly visual people. So they'll be able to take that concept, and once they see it on a screen, they can look at it, and the backend developer goes, okay, good, you've got a login box, that means I need a database. You know, you've got the email address, and you've got Twitter icon there, that means I need to do authentication and log in via Twitter. Good, so now I need that tool and that tool and that tool, and they'll start figuring out already as you're showing it to them. So that's how, yeah. Generally, once you've got this sort of visual design, you can start looking and identifying the problems that you need to get into to fix it. To answer your question? Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So, where were we? Front end, back end. Front end, back end. Front end, back end. Together, they're full stack. So how do you learn all this? We're getting close to the end because we've been actually gone quite a bit over because I'm demo. Well, really you just have to start, and I put a smiley face on the end of that because I know that that's a really loaded question, statement. But really, all you need is a computer and a willingness to learn, right? You actually have to want to learn. But the cool thing is it's actually never been easier to get started. And who has got a little inkling that they'd like to try? Maybe it's a little bit of web development. Lucky for you, we've run two things which are free. One of them is called the Install Fest, and one of them is called Development Hub. And you can find both of these by going to our website and going to the community section, or you can ask Chloe, who's in the red shirt at the back, about it. And what you do in these two things is at Install Fest, you bring your laptop and nothing else, preferably yourself, like your body, and make sure it's closed and stuff like that. Do bring your laptop, and by the end of the night, it starts at 7 o'clock. By the end of the night, you will have written a blog, software application in Ruby on Rails, and published it on the web, and it will be accessible from your phone or your home computer, and it will be a fully functioning blog. You can write posts, you can get comments, and you can do all of that, and we will get you through that in 3 hours. So it's a really good way to just touch on what development with Ruby on Rails is all about. Yeah?
You have to have an idea what you want to do, or it's just an exercise?
You're going to build a blog. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So we've written this little course that practically moves you through the steps to build a blog. And there's only usually about 20, 25 people there, and we usually have about 5 to 7 mentors there. So the learner-mentor ratio is really high, like it's 2 or 3 to 1. And that Install Fest is free, and you can come to it. We do it every month. It's down in Fairfax, in Darling Island. And then the week after that, you can come to Development Hub, which is also free. And there's free drinks and pizza at both of these events, so don't worry about having to find food before you come. And we do that at Reinteractive. It's just one of our community things to teach more people about learning Ruby on Rails. In the last year, we've put about 500 people through Install Fest, and over 110, 120 of them have been female. So it's a really high ratio. It's traditionally, I don't know if that's the right word, but systemically, in our community, women have a very low representation rate in this industry. So that we're running at about over 25%. That's pretty awesome, and it's working really well. So those two things will give you an introduction to Ruby on Rails, and you'll actually build a blog in that evening, and no one gets left behind.